Good morning from a beautifully sunny Durham city with Durham Cathedral. Glorious there. An absolute delight. If you've never been to Durham, then I can thoroughly recommend it. And here I'm joined by Joy Allen, who is the Police and Crime newly elected Police and Crime Commissioner for Durham. Joy, thank you so much for inviting me here to these beautiful surroundings. Congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
Following a period where there was no elected Police and Crime Commissioner, you replaced Ron Hogg, who, great loss, very sadly died whilst he was serving as Durham's Police and Crime Commissioner. Big shoes to fill.
It certainly was. I mean, he was a very progressive PCC, and it's one of those people that no matter where you go, be it in the communities or at a national level with other PCCs, he's held in high regard, and I think that's testament to the person he was. He had a really good working relationship as well with the previous chief, and I think the two of them were very, very out there and looking at what was best for the people of County Durham and Darlington, and they were brave enough to try things differently.
A lovely fellow. I loved his company. Let's walk down here. We're heading then we're going to walk past the cathedral and then on and down to the river.
Lovely. And
see how far we can get round the stretch of the river, and maybe while still filming we'll get back to the cathedral itself. You mentioned that, so Durham is certainly in Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, the force with the best performance in the country, and has been for some little while.
Yes, I think outstanding.
That's, again, you know, you've not only got Ron. Sorry, I'm sort of giving you a mountain to climb here, but you've got Ron's legacy to, and also the record that Durham has of being excellent. And now, with three women as leaders of the respective bodies that have a key influence on Durham's performance. So.
A lot of firsts, actually. A first leader of the local authority, first female chief, and now we've got the first female PCC in Durham. And again, as a team, obviously we work with our partners, but I think that sort of shows how progressive Durham is as an area, and what we do and how we work.
So Joe Farrell, the Chief Constable of Durham, and Amanda Hopgood, who I don't know, but as Chief Executive of Durham County Council. Sorry, as leader. I beg your pardon. Yep. Leader of Durham County Council, and I'm guessing you know them already pretty well.
Yes. Well, actually, strangely enough, I was on the panel to appoint Joe as deputy, because I was the SSAFA Communities portfolio holder at Durham County Council at the time, and I also know Amanda because we work together as county councillors in Durham. So I think that's a really good foundation to build on and to bring in, work collectively, looking at the things that we need to do to address some of the issues that we have within Durham. And I think the violence against women and girls is something that we're very, very passionate about. Joe's leading on a national level. We've got Operation Stereo, and I think with the County Council we know there's a lot we need to do with council services to help us reduce crime and support victims as well.
So, although you've only recently been elected as Police and Crime Commissioner, you've worked not just in local politics but in policing for quite a while.
Yeah.
You were the chair of the Police and Crime Panel.
That's right.
You've done a great deal with the Local Government Association.
Yes. Yeah. I think I started my career off as a temp over 30 years ago in the Road Traffic Collision Unit at Durham Constabulary.
Did you?
Yeah. I've been Neighbourhood Watch Coordinator. I've worked in Middlesbrough as SSAFA Communities Manager. And I've worked for the Fire and Rescue Service, so got quite a diverse background. I was even done architect liaison officer as well at the Crime Reduction College. So I think that sort of the practical experience really helps me in preparation for this role.
Now, we've come to a fork in the road, and my temptation here is to head down to the right, which I know leads down to the river. That I think will be the default option, but that, although it's looking rather dark down there, that also leads us round to some extent.
Does that take us to Prevance Bridge? I think
I'm tempted to bring Vicky in here, but I was given strict instructions.
I'll let you off.
So, well, look, we could take the risky option, or we can. Look.
Yeah,
Let's live dangerously. Well, not literally, you understand. So, of those, so great deal of experience that you bring into the role as Police and Crime Commissioner here in Durham. What of your previous experience are you now in your role as PCC most passionate about, that you really think, goodness, there's an opportunity here to make a real difference?
I think this is probably obviously like the pinnacle of your career, because you are on that job that you can make some big decisions, and seeing the difference that you can make just by, I've put in my plan about some forces have already done it, about making misogyny a hate crime voluntarily while we're waiting for legislation. So that's absolutely fantastic, to have the power to be able to do that and to affect change. I'd like to, obviously antisocial behaviour was a top priority, and I think my background is about partnership work, and I think this is absolutely crucial for PCCs, because as we know that the police force haven't got a lot of support for funding wise, where our local council has got a lot of services. It's the biggest council in the northeast, and we need to work with the children's services, the adult services, the public health, the work that we're doing in regeneration, jobs, employment, the drug and alcohol services, all local authorities. So partnership working is very, very much an important part that we can bring together. The other thing that I'm very passionate about is problem solving. Durham is sort of nationally recognised as a progressive force, and they're very, very good at problem solving. And I think if we get evidence-led, data-driven, problem-solving, partnership approach, that's the way I want to do things. And I'm very passionate about prevention. When I asked the public about various questions around what my priorities were, but also finding out what they were concerned about, only 6% felt like they were getting enough crime prevention advice. So if we want to reduce the demand on the services, if we want to reduce victims, we have to get better at getting the prevention messages out. And I think, again, from my team with the PCC and with the Durham Constabulary and with partners such as the local authority in Durham and Darlington, we need to get that education out to prevent crimes occurring in the first place.
One of the areas that I was particularly intrigued by, looking at both your CV, but also the portfolios that you have some responsibility for as part of the APCC, the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, spreading of responsibilities across police and crime commissioners, was the gambling side, where I believe part of the alcohol and substance misuse portfolio, which doesn't seem a natural fit,
no.
But I think it's that you were saying before there's a plan. Addictions. It's
addictions, and it's a gambling related disorder. I only came across this by accident, really, when I was the local government association licensing champion, and we were saying that people who had a gambling related disorder were gambling thousands of pounds a day, and I sort of thought, well, where are they getting the money from? It could be fraud, it could be stealing from their friends and family, but really what I wanted to do is to identify and signpost those people, because what we've seen, if the gambling companies are taken not doing the due diligence and they're encouraging people to bet that they can't afford to bet, if we do the work when we're preparing our court cases, the money can actually go back to the victim where the money's been stolen from, which I didn't appreciate. But also...
So there's an opportunity there for not only the individual who's found themselves sucked into the gambling addiction, but also to repay that money, as it were.
If you think about it, the analogy between the drug dealer targeting the drug user is exactly what they do from the gambling companies who target those people who've got gambling-related disorders. I was shocked to find out that people who tried to stop got £6,000 put in their account to gamble more, and those people could lose the job, they could lose the house, they could lose the family, they could commit, take their own life.
It's feeding their addiction effectively,
and it's just shocking, really. And the great thing is that we now have NHS gambling clinics, but unfortunately not a lot of people know about them. So by identifying people early, so one of the things you mentioned earlier on is what can you do? Well, one of the things that you can do, similar to the misogyny, when people come and present themselves into custody, we ask them a question about, do you need any support with drug or alcohol?
So that's a local initiative.
You can just ask the question about the gambling.
Yes.
Also, if anybody's taken, is at risk of taking their own life, again they can ask the question. Domestic violence, they can ask the question, and really for the next year, I think it's getting that baseline. If we can find out the extent of gambling, because a lot of people can gamble and quite absolutely with no problem at all. It's that small percentage of people who've got a gambling related disorder is the people that we need to target and support and signpost to help.
And not just out of care for the individuals affected by this gambling addiction, but there is also a link to crime, and so how the money is obtained, their own domestic circumstances.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds and fraudulent. They could be working for a small company, and that company could be at risk if somebody's gambling. The other thing with gambling, unlike drug and alcohol, people just might be looking like they're playing on the phone. But we've also seen recently in County Durham that people are gambling while they're driving HGVs, and
really?
they've killed somebody and they've gone to prison. So it's those people who we just need to get to the detail of it and work collectively. And I'm absolutely delighted that my counterpart who we're leading on this from Dorset is so passionate as well, like myself, and I think we can really make strides to address this and to shine a spotlight on it.
So David Sidgwick is the Dorset Police and Crime Commissioner, and he's the lead for what's currently named the alcohol and substance misuse. You're the deputy insofar as the classification, the terminology for APCC is concerned, and I appreciate changing the name to addictions.
Yes.
More so.
Yeah.
One of the other responsibilities that you have, and I'm guessing that there can't have been a compulsion as to which
No.
areas. So you must have expressed some degree of interest.
I did.
So
yeah.
I'm going to go for the environment and the sustainability. Environment and sustainability.
Yeah.
Which, go on, tell us about that then. What's that involved?
Well, I think obviously I think it's on the news every day and we've seen recently with the downpours of the rain and the impact on the environment. It's a very, very important aspect. Even from a policing point of view, what can we do? How can our buildings be more sustainable? How can we, if people are looking to electric vehicles or hydrogen vehicles, even Tesla are bringing out an emergency service car, which we're hoping to have that conversation about that, to see what does our new fleet look like. But also it has on there about social value. So some people, you're looking at headquarters or you're looking at custody suites, you're talking millions of pounds, and through social value you can bring some value back into the local authority and local area. So it could be in Durham and Darlington, or it could be in the region, and you can get 12 to 15% of social value by asking the question to the potential contractors.
So just let me explore the social value side, which I think I know a little about, but I just want to check. So social value is in part about using the value of contracts that are to be let to encourage local provision and the like. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a whole, there's different toolkits, and I think Durham's going to be the first one to use this new toolkit if we go ahead with the custody suite, and that way you can look at getting people who ex-offenders into employment. Could be an indicator that we're asking for. We could ask for people who are long-term unemployed. We can ask for local businesses to have an opportunity to supply the materials, and I think we get young people into jobs and apprenticeships. So if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think this is the beauty of the social value. There's a number of indicators that it may be in Durham will be different to Dorset or to Somerset, but you have an option, and you can then use what's important to you to get what you need back from the contractor. And sometimes the contractors are happy to deliver, but you need to ask, and you need to be specific about what you want to get out of your contract and your relationship.
So there's two, both in the discussion we had about addictions and in this environment and sustainability discussion. You've referred, and I'm just going to pan the camera here for a moment, because here we are by the river. I can't remember which river it is. I should really know. It's the Wear. It's not the Tyne. I knew it wasn't the Tyne, and it's not the best shot, I fear, of the Wear just here. But the analogy I was going to refer to here with the morning, the river there in the background, was getting upstream. So policing with constrained budgets, it's easy, indeed arguably necessary, to focus on the response activities, the areas such as counter-terrorism, protecting life and livelihood, but less opportunity in constrained budget times to focus upstream on what it is that is leading youngsters, people into criminal activity. How can forces and others, the multi-agency, invest in order to have a benefit that might not emerge for 5 years or so, or even 10 years. So in both of those portfolios, the environment and in the addiction side, you've brought in elements that refer to that. So I'm guessing something you feel passionate about.
Yeah, and I think there's so much opportunities. Durham County Council have got some really progressive and ambitious targets around climate change. So I think that's a real opportunity for us from a police force as well, because if you have to have electric vehicles, you need some high rapid charging points, but if you've got a council that wants to take your petrol and diesel off the roads, it's in their interest to help us potentially with fleet and to produce these charging points around County Durham and Darlington, and particularly sort of in those rural areas as well, because it's quite a diverse force area. So I think it's understanding some of the issues that are national, but then tapping into it and bringing the benefits of understanding the language and what's important to both Durham County Council and Darlington, and saying we can help you, we want to work with you and deliver these things. And so I think environment and sustainability is a key thing for both councils and areas. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity to understand what's coming down nationally, and then we can impact locally and vice versa. So it's good stuff.
Let's move then to a key area nationally that doesn't appear to be a key area locally, and that is another one actually of your portfolios. So we're getting on to the third of your 4 portfolios. I fear we won't have time to get to the fourth. But so the emergency services collaboration, where you work with Phil Aylott, who is the North Yorkshire Police and Crime Commissioner. Now, Phil is one of roughly half a dozen PCCs who are actually police, fire and crime. So in other words, they have governance responsibilities for the fire service in each of their respective regions. Now, it's only half a dozen of just under 40 police and crime commissioners who have that additional fire responsibility. You're on that particular area of interest. Does that suggest that you are desperately keen to take on fire responsibility here in Durham?
Now, I think one of the reasons I indicated that I was interested in that is because I used to work at the fire service myself as an area manager, so I thought I could bring that insight as a PCC to understand the culture of fire service, but also I think from County Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service, it's understanding how they operate and having that opportunity. So at a local level, members are very happy with the current situation, like the status quo, and I think that there was opportunities that I think a lot of people felt that there was going to be mandated with the review, but it's down to consultation. So I don't think there's an appetite locally to have the PCFC, but if it's mandated, we will work together for the better of both services, and I think we've got a really good and close relationship. I mean, I know all the fire authority members, and I know the local members of Durham County Council, so I think they know me. So I think there's that trust that it's not about a takeover, it's about understanding that you appreciate what we do and how we do it.
And at risk here of my stymieing the ambition of the government's fire and police mergers, I imagine there are some elements, if not many elements, where with goodwill and the support of key stakeholders, you can achieve much, if not all, of the ambition of the merger without the challenge of trying to bring the two together.
Yeah, I think we do work very closely and collaboratively with what we do. I mean, just we've had the Durham Pride was on Saturday, and the emergency services were out in full display with the personnel. But one of the things that Durham does, we've got that tri-service station as well, so we've got that opportunity there.
So this is where you've got a single piece of estate, a building, that brings in police, fire and tri-service ambulance, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And
it works well, and I think that's something that, again, is quite progressive for Durham. Durham, the firefighters do safer homes, so they do a lot of visits around home safety, and that's obviously the prevention aspect, slips, trips and falls. So that progressive way of working outside the fire agenda is already here in Durham. I think it's where you've got the estates side. Again, a lot of the buildings are quite close to each other, so that's the way we do work in Durham, and then it's down to this review to find out what the outcome will be.
So we're coming towards the close of our conversation fairly shortly. I want to move on shortly to a question about charities, but just before we go on to that, you and indeed other newly elected PCCs, slightly unusual circumstances in that you only have 3 years, as opposed to 4 years.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic, the previous tenure was extended to 5 years, and the tenure of currently elected PCCs is just 3 years. What would you realistically hope to be displaying as a mark of your success in your term, potentially first term as PCC. I'm not going to ask you that question. Too early to ask you whether you're standing again. But what in 2.5 years' time would you hope to be able to say, there we are, done with a team, but joy, that is what that is what I've achieved.
Right. On a positive note, we got obviously we did get an extra year that we had to wait for the election, which meant that I was able to do a really well thought out manifesto that with the help of my team, we were able to get to the police and crime panel a couple of weeks ago. So that manifesto is out for consultation. So
this is your police and crime plan that's statutory, as a statutory requirement.
Yeah, and I think once we've got that, that's going back to the panel in September. So I think that gives me 6 months ahead, you know, because we've got that
because normally that wouldn't appear until early part of next year.
Yeah. So then I've got about 76 priorities that I've set out in the plan. So I want to achieve them all. I've identified under the themes that I've got, the things that I want to do under, you know, under safer communities, safer online, safer roads, safer countryside, and looking at safer business. And this is the things and safer people is a really important one. There's a lot in there around hate crime, stalking, violence against women and girls, the gambling issue, the addictions. So I want to achieve it all.
Well, good luck with that. I did genuinely good luck. I really look forward to hearing more success from Durham over the coming months and handful of years. Charities. It's a tradition on these policing policing friendship tour journeys and walks to ask the person whose company I am enjoying about a charity that is dear to their heart. And for you, what charity or charities might that be?
My charity would be SSAFA, which looks after the veterans of either serving or retired armed forces personnel. They're doing an absolutely wonderful job. Anybody who's willing to give the life for the country, I think deserves as much as we possibly can. Unfortunately, people who've done over 22 years or more sometimes become institutionalised, and sometimes they need that help getting back into civilian life, that, you know, they've had a whole body of aware things and then that's taken away from them. We've seen, you know, some of our veterans and some of the challenges that they're living with. I would give them, you know, like a penthouse suite with waitresses, because those people
many struggle coming back from their service.
The things that they've seen is hard. But at a local level, I'm the Durham the SSAFA local patron, and that means that we do what we can to support the charity. We've got one as well as a social isolation fund, where during COVID they were doing bacon butties for all the veterans, and they were taking that, even just that visit on the doorstep. But sometimes they have special needs, and SSAFA can make that happen. Even just sometimes putting ribbons when they've got medals, they haven't got the ribbons on, they can do those things that can be really proud. So, you know, working with that, I feel very privileged, and any way I can to support them.
So a charity dear to your heart, SSAFA. Joy, it's been excellent, wonderful walking with you this morning. I'm just going to pan the camera around to, this is the River Wear, as you've pointed out to me. Clearly my geography is not up to scratch. And behind, not able to show you because it's through the canopy of trees, well, I will pan the camera up there. Would be Durham Cathedral. In fact, you can probably just about see the ramparts through the trees. It's become also a bit of a tradition that after these walks and videos, that we go and find an ice cream.
Oh.
So do you think that somewhere in Durham city centre, there might be a place for an ice cream?
I think there might be. Yeah,
so we'll go and have a look, shall we? In the meantime, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All the best.